Good morning! Today I am going to be commenting on all of the comments that I have not been responding to for the past 10 days. This is gonna be fun. I thought I might film it and respond to some of the comments in person. Do this. Let's also make note of the time, because that's always fun, right? To see exactly how much time you're spending on things. So it is 10:45 now. So, Charles shared with me a video about the local, I guess his local knitting community, which is kind of cool. I don't think he's a part of it, just something that he saw on the news about a knit shop that runs work classes. Because in my planning video, I shared that I am going to a knit night at Bailey's house, actually. Bailey is my podcast co-host. I can knit. I do know how to knit. I think my crocheting is cleaner is the thing. I have a really hard time starting my knitting. So I probably actually need something like this local knit shop to, like, they do private lessons, which is pretty cool. So that's a neat little article. Thanks, Charles, for sharing that with me. Actually getting a lot of really positive responses to the planning video, which is really cool. On April 9th, I posted the Plan With Me video showing you how I use the bullet journal. Oh, all the things just fell out. Lovely. It's not something that I normally do. I don't normally do plan with me's. I'm also not the most artistic planner. There are some really beautiful planning channels online, but it was fun, and it's cool that there is generally a positive response, at least in the comments. I can probably go to the analytics of this video and like look at how long people watched, the ups and downs, to see what the general response was to it, but it's nice that the comments are positive at least. So Patrick Etheridge left me a comment on the Little Mermaid video. That was a discussion video where I talked about the Hans Christian Andersen? I don't know, it sounds wrong. His version of The Little Mermaid compared to The Surface Breaks, which is a feminist retelling of that. And he says, I imagine you shake your head at some people's attempts at feminism, having studied it as long as you have. Sometimes I think people come up with very different understandings of feminism, which is okay. I personally subscribe to and try and practice intersectional feminism, because I think a lot of people are under the impression that like feminism is angry, radical lesbians who want to eliminate men from society and like reverse sexism. And I mean, I'm sure that there are people like that out there because there are extremists out there everywhere, but I don't think that most people who identify as feminist or who attempt feminist living would identify that way. That hasn't been my experience with anybody like in university. And essentially intersectional feminism is looking at all of the ways in which the various sectors of your identity affect how you move in the world. Basically, if you have like a power wheel, can I draw a power wheel? Do I have any scrap paper? So like one of the first lessons we got in gender studies was like the wheel of power. If you think in binaries, right? So you have man, so on the opposite side is woman. We might have straight, and on the opposite side of that we would have queer. And then here we might have white, and over here we would have color. And here we would have abled, and here we would have disabled, right? These are just a couple of examples. This is a really crooked flower of power, or whatever you want to call it. Essentially, it is easiest for the people who fall on, oh, you know what we should also include on here? Is good and not so good. Let's just put it like that. Right, so good is going this way on the wheel of power, the flower of power, and then we have not so good. the opposite of good is bad. Yes, I know that, but I don't want to say that. The more good things you have going for you, the easier it is for you to function in society, right? The more places where your identity intersects with something on the not so good side of the flower of power, the harder it is for you to move through society, because the world is set up for these people to succeed, right? All intersectional feminism is looking at all of the factors that go into somebody's identity and how that affects how they move through the world. I don't know, I don't think it's as controversial as it should be. But yes, it is sometimes a little bit hard to look at internet feminism having a scholarly background. And at the same time, there's a problem in that as well, because who am I to say, like, so I've had the privilege of an education. Who am I to say that the feminism that somebody is doing on the internet based on lived experience, not based on theory, is less good than the feminism I have learned from a university, right? Like, you always have to think. Sometimes I do shake my head at the attempts at feminism. But again, everybody is sort of on their own learning curve, so there's that. Wiebke from One Book, One Review suggests that I try the 7-minute workout. She finds it really effective, and you only do one set, so you can squeeze them in easily. And she also has a standing desk. I have been thinking about a standing desk for a while. I don't know if I edited it out of one of the videos, but I do remember, or if I just had this conversation in person. Oh. But I have talked about getting a second desk in here, because clearly what this really cramped room needs is more furniture. Maybe it was a conversation in real life with my sister. Yes, it probably was, because I was talking about the work desk and she termed it the pleasure desk, which just sounds terrible. It's possible. It's definitely possible. I would have to get a longer internet cord. I'm just thinking it's easier. It's easier to get the desk, like from IKEA, than it would be to make all of the cords work for this computer. But I think it is possible, and it might be an excellent thing to look into. I have been thinking about a standing desk, and I will look into the 7-minute workout, so thank you for that. Vinexa, hope I'm pronouncing that remotely close to correct, pointed out that during my March reading wrap-up, you could see the Arc of Nocturna by Maya Montaigne, and this sounds phenomenal. So I was actually sent this by the publishers through work as an Indigo employee, and it says, "A thief without a face, a prince who was never meant to be king, a magic that will drown the world in darkness, Nocturna is coming. A talented face shifter and a grieving prince accidentally unlock a terrible ancient power, and with the kingdom's fate in their hands, they must race to vanquish what they've unleashed, even if it means facing the deepest darkness in their pasts." It sounds super good, so I'm super excited for this. This comes out in May. So I do want to read that soon. But yeah, it is a book that I am anticipating as well. Bookish Bluettes says that she's looking forward to a separate review for Jane Eyre, which is coming, by the way. And she says, "Warning, Jane Eyre is one of my fave classics. True fact, Mr. Rochester can literally choke." Oh my goodness. I just want that man gone. I fucking loved Jane as a character. She is probably, like, I would reread the book purely for Jane, but Mr. Rochester can just die in a hole. Like, oh my goodness. That brought me so much joy. Thank you for that. So on the VEDA Day 1 2019 goals Q1 check-in video, Wiebke actually commented as well, talking about how, I guess it looks like I'm doing really well with my goals, and she feels a bit like an underachiever now. That kind of makes me sad, because that was not my intention, I guess. Like, sometimes I make videos that I mean, I put them online, but they're almost more of me like sharing like a diary entry with you, and now a couple hundred people are holding me accountable opposed to just a piece of paper. I have some really ambitious goals and I am fully aware of that. And I'm also, at the same time that I am trying to be super ambitious, I am also trying to be really cognizant of burnout. I mean, after last year, in which I was just working so much, I was totally burnt out and it really affected my health. It affected my mental health. And so being in a, I don't want to say radically different place, it sort of feels like a radically different place this year. Now that I'm not burnt out on what I'm doing, I'm really excited about all of the things that I'm doing. So I want to do as much as possible, but at the same time I am trying to be cognizant of burnout. And I feel like everybody is sort of at different places. So Vipka talks about achieving her most serious goals, which I think is important. Like I hope that no matter what you're doing this year, whether you've set one goal or no goals, or you've set a really ridiculous amount of goals like I have, that as long as you are happy, as long as you feel good about what you're doing, that's really all that matters. Congratulations on doing really well with your reading and you're getting fit. That is so awesome. I hope your year continues to go well. On the VEDA Day 3 podcast teaser for Wild Sounds Civilized, Gabby left me a comment talking about Angie Thomas's target audience. And so Gabby says, yes, she is aware of the white audience, but she also writes largely for Black girls like herself who don't see themselves in stories and are left out of the Black Lives Matter movement, which focuses much more on young boys and men. And like, I totally agree. I totally agree that Thomas is writing for herself because she probably didn't see herself represented in the text that she read when she was younger. She's probably writing for her teenage self. Like, I totally agree that that is probably the audience she has in mind in her head when she writes. But I think, and I'm not sure if this comes across in the video, I think what we're trying to get at when we say that the audience is largely like middle class 20-something white ladies, that is the target market for young adult literature. It's not actually teens. I saw a stat somewhere that said the largest consumers of young adult literature are actually in their 20s, so that they're not like 13-year-olds. I mean, 13-year-olds are in there, but a good chunk of that market is adults, which I have a whole thought on why that is, but that's not for today. In order for a book to get published, it has to have appeal to a wide audience. And by wide audience, you may as well replace that wide with white. That is who publishing has traditionally been publishing for. White, straight, Christian, able-bodied. We can pull out that wheel of power again. I think with publishing, a lot of times it's anticipating who you're selling to, right? Like in book selling as well, Thomas in her head when she's writing is not writing for white people, but the publishing house when they are editing and promoting. And this is just an unfortunate step, I think, that has to happen in order for publishers to see like, this is commercially successful, let's see what else we can take a risk on. I totally agree with you that in Thomas's mind, I am not her target audience, but in the eyes of the capitalist publishing industry, I am the target audience, which is unfortunate, but that's capitalism, right? I'm also just gonna delete this. Somebody just commented, beautiful body, wow, we're just gonna, boop, you're gone.